At this time, we will have a presentation by Sister Debbie, and she's a registered dietitian, and she would let us know how we can eat for good health. We all want to be healthy, right? All right. Sister Deb, all over to you.
Okay. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
All right, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to take the mic off if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the title of my presentation is Eat for Health. And we all ate a good meal today. And next slide, please. So why should we eat healthy? We take care, we exercise, we do all these things for health. So why should we eat healthy? When we eat healthy, it helps prevent from chronic diseases, and in the end, it's going to also help us physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So in this presentation, I was trying to decide how to approach this topic, and so I wanted to just look at it from sharing some facts and fiction. We're going to look at what the research says and what is considered healthy. So next slide. So one of the fiction is, or well, I'm going to ask you the question, fiction or fact, does sugar cause cancer or diabetes? Is that a fiction or fact? A fact? How many say fact? How many say fiction? Okay, next slide. So sugar does not directly cause diabetes or cancer, but high sugar foods can lead to obesity and other health issues that can lead to increase in the risk of diabetes and cancer. So if we're eating a lot of sugar in our diet, we can have some insulin resistance, which then increases your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And oftentimes these foods are also high in fat and calories, and so that also increases your risk for other health issues. Now, okay, next slide. Recommendations for sugar intake. So many of us, Americans, we tend to eat a lot of sugar, and sometimes it's, for some people that's a challenge. And I remember for myself once that I took a fast from sugar. I was never really addicted to sugar. That was never something that was an issue for me. But I fasted from sugar because I was fasting for something spiritual, and so I wanted to fast, and I fasted from sugar, and I could tell a difference in how I felt. I did it for a year, and I was just praying for direction, and I could tell a difference afterwards. So the maximum amount of recommendation for sugar for women is 6 teaspoons per day, and for men, it's 9 teaspoons per day. And it also shows the calories, so 9 teaspoons per day are 150 calories. And if you just think about that, if you eliminate that from your diet, if you're trying to lose weight, how many calories, how much, how effective that could be with weight loss. Ages 2 to 18, maximum of 6 teaspoons per day, and of course under 2, no sugar at all is recommended. And just to put this into perspective, 1 can, and we just use Coca-Cola as an example, it has 39 grams of sugar in 1 can. So that's more than the recommendation for the day for sugar. So when in the past, I've gone into high schools and talked to young kids, who were, just sharing their diets, and they were always, they had a can of Coke and a bag of chips. And so what tends to happen when you're having, when you're drinking a lot of sugar and you're having like a can of pop or something like that, you have a sugar high. You have your sugar spikes, your blood sugar spikes. And then what happens after it spikes up, it's got to go down. And so it drops, and when it drops, you feel hungry again. And then you grab another can of pop, and then it spikes again. And so you have this roller coaster effect. And over time, you're going to develop some insulin resistance. And so the key is to have a diet where you're having more of a stable calorie intake and fiber and so forth. And we'll get more into that too. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, another fact or fiction. Does red or processed meat increase risk of cancer and heart disease? Is that a fact or a fiction? Fact, yes. So, red meat. Red meat includes beef, veal, pork, lamb, and goat meat. And some people think of pork as a white meat, and so they don't really think of it as red meat, but it is red meat because it's a mammal, and so it's considered red meat. Whereas chicken is a bird, so it's considered the white meat. And then we have some music to go along with this. Processed meat includes bologna, pepperoni, ham, bacon, hot dogs, and salami. And so, next slide, please. There is strong evidence now that supports high amounts of red meat increased risk of certain types of cancers, especially colorectal cancer. If you have more than 18 ounces of red meat per week, that increase your risk of colorectal cancer by about 15 to 30%, and in some cases even up to 35%. Now, when you think of 18 ounces of red meat, let's take a look at the actual number, 18 ounces. When you're having your meat, you've probably heard, from other nutritionists or just in general, that about the size of the palm of your hand is 3 ounces, and about the size of your thumb is 2 ounces. Or maybe a little bit larger depending on your thumb. I have a smaller thumb. But so if you're having just 3 ounces of meat every day, 3 ounces of red meat every day, how many ounces is that? 21 ounces. That's more than the 18 ounces right there. So, it really can have an effect on your, your overall health, having too much red meat. 50 grams of processed meat daily, just one hot dog or a few slices of bacon, increase heart disease risk by 18%. So, not very much, just one hot dog. So that increases your risk by 18%. Next slide, please. Now, fact or fiction, does soy increase your risk of breast cancer? Yeah, who said yes? Okay, who says no? Okay, who's not sure? Okay, so in the past, there was some research that indicated that isoflavones, soy isoflavones, increase the risk of breast cancer. And so isoflavones is a phytoestrogen. So phytoestrogen is a weaker form of estrogen. It's the estrogen that you get from plant foods. And isoflavones is found in soy. And so there was in the past some research that indicated that. But now, research now shows that soy isoflavones like, as I mentioned, phytoestrogen, actually decrease the risk of breast cancer. And especially in those who have been eating soy ongoing for a long period of time. So if you've been eating soy all along for a long time, you actually have a lower risk of developing breast cancer. And now, it doesn't mean that if you can, it's good to start even now. So if you have not been eating soy, you can still add it to your diet, and it's still going to help give you some benefit. But you're going to receive the most benefit if you've been doing it for a long period of time. And there's some really good information I have to share too regarding this. We'll get to it in a second. But benefits of soy. So soy decreases your risk of colorectal cancer, and it's also high in protein. For those who are plant-based, who are vegans, who don't have any animal products in their diet, there's always a concern, well, where am I going to get my protein? And soy is considered a complete protein. So when you look at the food that you're eating, there are 9 essential amino acids that your body needs to make a complete protein. And so those 9 essential amino acids, essential meaning those are amino acids that you get from foods that you eat, and it's added to the that you need for the body to make a complete protein. Because amino acids basically are the building blocks for protein. And so so the meat and animal foods are considered complete protein. And for the longest time, there was only just a couple things that they found that really were considered complete proteins from plant foods, and one of them was soy. And so, and what I found out recently, or which I think is more one of the newer ones, is pistachios. Pistachios is considered a complete protein. And I was happy to see that because I actually make pistachio waffles. And so, and I was, I was looking for something for my son when he was in high school, when he was doing sports that was a high protein breakfast meal. And so I started making pistachio waffles. And I found out now that it actually is a complete protein. So that's really nice to know. And then there's other things like chia seeds is also considered complete protein, and there's a list of other things too. But soy is. And another interesting thing about soy, which I was really excited to find out, this is something that I recently found out in doing I was doing my CEUs for my RD license, and I was doing some reading and came across this information. And so equol is the urine from horses. This is in horses' pee. They found this chemical, and so they've named it equol for, I guess, for equarian for horses. Anyway, equol is first discovered in horses and in their urine, and it's also in other animal urine, and later now they found it in human urine. And it is metabolized from diazosin, which is an isoflavone. And diazosin is an isoflavone that's found in soy. And so what they found is that those that have been eating soy for a long period, ongoing for a period of time, actually have higher levels of their body is actually able to metabolize the equol, where basically metabolize the diazine and turn it to equol. So not everyone has the ability to do that, but they found that 50 to 60% of Asians are able to make this conversion, and the other group were vegetarians, those that were eating soy. They also had a higher capability of converting the diazine to equol. And the benefit of the equol includes anti-aging. So that was exciting. We always want to, we all want to look younger. So the benefits include anti-aging and also helps to relieve menopausal symptoms in women. So those are some of the, and I'm sure they're going to find more health benefits of this, in the future. But right now they're finding, a few. So that's exciting. Next slide, please. So where can you get soy from? So sources of soy, tofu. Who's never had tofu? Anyone? Okay, most people have. I remember this is over 20 years ago, before I got married, and I actually before went back to school for nutrition because I was in another field. Anyway, I was a friend told me about tofu, and I'd never had tofu before, and I think I bought it 3 times, and I threw it out each time because I had it in my fridge, and then I said, oh, it's probably gone bad, let me throw it out. And so I kept, finally I said, I'm going to have someone show me how to make this. And I actually did a cooking class at my church, and they showed me how to make the tofu. And so tofu is, it's almost like a cheesy texture to it, and it absorbs whatever flavor you add to it, and you can texturize it to make it firmer, to get more of a firm texture, like a meaty texture. And there's several ways that you can texturize it. So I usually get the extra firm tofu or the super firm, and you can texturize it in a skillet with keeping the lid covering it. Maybe it takes about 20 minutes or so, 20 to 30 minutes, just turning it and keeping it covered. Or you can freeze it, and that texturizes it too. You freeze it, and then you take it out and let it thaw in the fridge. And once it's thawed, you just cook it like you just toss it, because it's already, it can be eaten raw, so it's already texturized, and you can just toss it in the skillet, brown it, and add your seasonings and your vegetables or whatever you want to add to it. And another way, which I've been doing lately, is in the air fryer. And to me, that's just one of the easiest ways, and it's just quick, and I just take it and I cut it into squares, and I throw it in my air fryer, and maybe 20 minutes, and it gets nice, or as long as you keep it in there for as long as you like, until it gets to the texture that you want it. So that's, I did the cooking class a couple weeks ago at Kalamazoo Church and showed everyone we did it in the air fryer. And it just has a nice, firm, meaty texture. Soy milk, tempeh. Tempeh is fermented soybeans, and there's lots of health benefits in the fermentation of the tofu. So fermented soybeans has a lot of benefits too. So tempeh, and not just fermented soybeans, but just fermented foods, period. We know that actually helps with changing the microbiome, which is the bacteria in the gut, and that actually helps improving their health. There's lots of health benefits in having a healthy microbiome, and so getting fermented foods in the diet is a good way to do that. So tempeh, soy milk, soy yogurt, soy cheese. There's lots of soy cheese out there now that some that melts pretty good, and misos, edamame. That's just the soybean itself. You can get it in the pods, or you can just get the. I like to buy the one that's the seeds that's been roasted, and then soy curls. I used to get that at Apple Valley, but soy curls is also another soy product. And that picture, the first one, is my tofu that I made. I make a vegan curry goat, and so that's the meat for that. And so I just texturize it and season it, and so that's the picture. All right, next slide, please. So recommended soy intake per day for up to up to 1 to 2 servings per day of soy is recommended. And 1 serving of tofu is about 4 ounces, or 1/4 of a block. So if you buy the water-packed block at like at Myers, the frozen one, 1/4 of that is considered a serving, or 1/3 cup, or about 4 ounces. Shelled edamame, 1/2 cup is considered a serving. And soy milk, 1 cup of soy milk is considered a serving. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I was told to make this was just a short presentation, so I hope I didn't go too long. Just some bullet points. For eating healthy, eat a variety of fruits and vegetables. Variety is a key. Get in, and when you eat in the fruits and vegetables, your plant foods, those are sources of what's called phytochemicals. And phytochemicals are basically chemicals found in plants. And that helps to with decreasing your risk of chronic diseases. And so eating a variety of fruits and vegetables. I always tell my clients, this, whenever you go into the store, the grocery store, start in the produce section first. I always start there because by the time I've gotten all my fruits and vegetables, my cart should be pretty much half full at least, because that's where most of what I'm eating is my fruits and vegetables. And I love fruits, so and vegetables. So I get most of my food there. Then I go to the grains and choose whole grains: brown rice, quinoa, millet, and there's some grains there that you may never tried. Try something different. Don't have your diet the same day after day, week after week. Change it up a little bit. That actually helps with the microbiome. So having some variety. And if you're eating meat, just limit the amounts. I just shared with you that 18 ounces of red meat, more than 18 ounces or more, is increasing the risk of colorectal cancer by by up to 30%. So just limit your meat intake if you're having meat. And then when you have the meat, remove the fat off of it. And try to bake it or broil it. Avoid frying, because when you fry it, you're increasing the fat intake. And you're also, you don't want to grill it either, or fry it, that also causes other chemicals with the grilling to be released. I'm sorry, not grilling, but barbecuing. But grill, bake, or broil. Focus on fiber. Gradually increase your fiber from foods. So the recommendation for fiber for women is about 25 grams per day, and for men, 38 grams per day. And I usually tell people 25 to 30 grams for women, and up about 38 grams for men is recommended. And limit your sugar intake, as we talked about earlier, and limit your sodium intake to 2,300 milligrams per day. That's about 1 teaspoon of salt. So, and some people, that's their challenge is a salt. Some is sugar, some is salt. But it's easy to eat more salt than you should, because there's a lot of things that we buy, especially if we get foods at the fast food restaurants, it's usually very salty. And so trying to limit your salt intake. And if you have high blood pressure, you want to limit it to even less than that. Usually 1,500 milligrams per day is recommended. And then drink lots of water. Half your body weight in ounces of water. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you should be drinking about 100 ounces of water a day. So that's sounds like a lot of water. Just gradually increase it. If you're not, if you're not drinking much water, you're not going to just automatically start drinking that much now. And the same with fiber. And it's good to gradually increase the fiber, because if you just go from 0 to 30 grams of fiber a day, you're going to find yourself in the bathroom constipated. So, just gradually increase it in your diet. until you get to that amount. And the same as water, just gradually increase it. Start to increase your water intake. I used to tell my pregnant moms when I worked with pregnant moms is that when they, every time they go to the bathroom to pee, drink a glass of water. And my rule now for myself, and I usually tell people, is when you first wake up in the morning, I usually get 2 cups of water right then, sometimes more. I just guzzle it down. And that way I have at least 2 to 4 cups of water out of the way first thing in the morning. And then throughout the day, I drink more and just keep drinking. And then you find yourself getting thirsty after a while, that you just start craving it. So drinking lots of water every day. Next slide. I think this is last. Okay. So the American Institute of Cancer Research recommends for the new American plate that 2/3 of your plate should be plant-based. So that's pretty awesome that they've come out and said this. So 2/3 of your plate. So I just basically put some pictures in here. And if you can see, this is just some quinoa on one side, some tofu on the other third. So 1/3 is tofu, 1/3 is quinoa, and 1/3 is vegetables. And I realize that's more than 2/3. But if you're having meat, just limit your meat to no more than the 1/3. And I would try to, if you're trying to limit your meat intake, there's a couple things you can do. Try something like a meatless Monday, 1 day a week where you don't have any meat. Or maybe it's a meal. Maybe you're going to start off with a meal. If you're having meat every meal, you're going to cut back. Just wherever you are, just start taking steps back to limit the amount so that you can decrease your risk of developing certain types of cancers. Okay, next slide. Okay, many of you have heard these before already. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Quote from Hippocrates. I can't say that. Hippocrates, thank you. And you are what you eat. And I'm not going to try to say his name. But the one I really like is to eat is a necessity, but to eat intelligently is an art. And I love that. And then Proverbs 23, verse 1-3 says we should eat carefully, practicing self-control. So in everything, we should practice self-control. And, some of you have know of the 8 laws of health and temperance, everything in moderation. And so I think that's the last slide, is it? Okay. So any questions? Okay, yes.